Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Anthony Garone with us, Garone, if I would pronounce the Italian way, sort of. He is ghostwriter for tech and SaaS at Edify Content, co-founder there too. He's a YouTuber, concert host, promoter, interviewer, musician. He's a lot of things and half Ironman, like the last time that we spoke, right, Anthony?
No, but
Not
running
yet,
and
about
biking.
to. Yeah, about to.
Short triathlons, yeah.
Yeah, co-author as well. So he's touching many things, and he was questioning me about like all the stuff that I do, and I'll kind of revert these questions back to you, Anthony, to find out more about your systems and your frameworks. But before we do, this podcast is brought to you by podfire.com. It's my podcasting company. If people want to start or scale a podcast, and most importantly, monetize them, we developed a system / a framework to get you a bunch of guests and convert these guests into community members, into clients, into friends, into people you can learn from, mentors. So if you want to start or scale, monetize a podcast, go to podfire.com. Anthony, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and about what you're up to nowadays.
Thank you, Charles. I think I have a lot in common with you, kind of the restless ambition and the sort of unquenchable desire for creative output. I don't enjoy doing one thing, and I don't enjoy doing things not well. So it's kind of a dangerous conversation or a combination, because I love doing a lot of things and I love doing them very, very well. And I try to be world class in the things that I take seriously. But it becomes a very esoteric lifestyle.
And why are you that way?
I'm sure, you and I were talking a little about this. I'm sure there's some stuff with my childhood. There's stuff with how I was raised. I would bring home a test from school at a 98%, and my mom would say, "Why didn't you get 100?" I don't think that's a healthy form of parenting, but it's the form of parenting that I got. And I think I ended up with some of these mental habits of talking to myself in a certain way that forces me to put ambition first.
I mean, that must have been pretty hard to grow up on in that. Like my parents, they gave me a lot of freedoms, but there's always pros and cons to this. My children's, I think I'd raise them with good discipline. I wouldn't go with perfectionism, especially when it comes to school, because I think school is bullshit. Would be more like, how much did you make with your business today? How many satisfied customers do you have? Did you build a great product and so forth? Um, but yeah, it must have pushed you to reach for excellence. And nowadays, you're a business owner, you're a book author, a musician as well. How do you cross-pollinate one area to the other to grow as an entrepreneur from what you learn in music, and grow from growing music from what you learned as an author, for example?
I don't think there's any explicit or intentional effort to cross-pollinate. I think it's just the embodiment of who I am, and I'm sure you see this too. You seem to be a very synergistic person where all of your things feed into one another. I'm more of a waffle person, like I have a little syrup thing here for music, and then another one for YouTube, and another one for writing and whatever. So for me, they are just outcomes of who I am and how I'm interested in the world. But I think music is really the foundation of all of it, because I thought I was going to be a famous guitar player. I thought that would be my life. And I worked for the guy who inspired me to even play guitar. His name's Steve Vai. He's a world famous guitarist. And I have since worked with some of the world's most incredible top musicians. Last night I was with my friend Andre, who's the guitar tech for Pat Metheny, and Pat's the most famous jazz guitarist in the world, and he has a whole array of incredible, interesting instruments. And it was just a great reminder of what it means to be serious. Pat sleeps until 2 p.m. He shows up at the concert venue around 4 or 5. Actually earlier, around 3 o'clock. He practices for over an hour. Then he does sound check, which runs through almost his entire show. Then he performs the entire show. Then after the show, he goes to his hotel and practices more guitar. He takes a shower, he eats, he goes through all of that. I've worked for and with, like I said, some of the most amazing musicians and some of the most amazing technologists as well. The people who are serious are the ones who do the hard work every day, all day. I worked for a guy named Danny Hillis for a little while when I was younger. He helped start Amazon. He invented RAID arrays and supercomputing. Richard Feynman worked for him. I had dinner with Jeff Bezos through Danny. Like, I've been exposed to a lot of very serious people, and the ones who succeed and thrive are the ones who just truly commit their life to it. And I think I've truly committed my life to having a variety of creative outcomes.
Right. I want to do a special here because we have 10 minutes left. I want to do a rapid fire, some of the quotes that I see on your website here, starting with why you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Why do you live by that quote?
Oh, that's from the book of James in the Bible. For me, when I think of myself as a mist, I think that nothing is truly that important that I'm worried about or working on, and I will be forgotten. Just like I don't even know the names of my great grandparents. That some people might find that shameful, but I just think in 3 generations I'll be completely forgotten. No, I won't matter at all, and 3 generations is nothing. So why am I so worried about the things I'm doing on a day-to-day basis? And if I'm going to succeed or fail, it's better to have done the thing and seen and experienced it.
I agree with the second part. The first part, I think we're going to have a machine that's going to be able to kind of crack space-time and turn back to every single molecule that ever existed in history. And yeah, I'm going to be fascinated by that. Like, I'm going to tell this AI to give me the story and the highlights of your great-great-grandfather. And it's just so fun to learn about people's lives and the trials and tribulations that they went to. It's beautiful, I think that's one of the most beautiful things about humans is our ability to be resilient and to go from a really shitty situation to a beautiful one, just with the power of our minds, right? Second
I
quote
feel
here.
quite
Yeah.
the opposite. I hope to be forgotten, and I can't wait to be just nothing,
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Second quote here. We are not thinking machines. We're feeling machines that think. That is beautiful.
Yeah, that's a quote from Antonio Damasio from his book Descartes' Error. And that quote means a lot to me because it's helped me to see my own motivations and the motivations of others. People do things because they have feelings, not because they're rational. And so we do this all the time. Like, oh, a sandwich sounds good. Why does a sandwich? It's just like something that comes to your head. And we do this with business all the time. Today, we're actually launching a generative AI content service. And I thought, well, this is probably the way forward. And what am I going to have, for a career when AI sort of gets really, really good? I need to have a competitive advantage. And I think that feeling of fear motivated me to want to start a line of business around this. And it's like, am I doing this because AI is truly a great product? No, it's not a great product. I have a feeling that people will want an AI generated content service for a lower price and a faster turnaround. And I don't want to be out of business.
It's always interesting, what percentage of that comes from what you've read in the media, what you've read from peers that you respect, and you have a weight of authority on each, and what part is from trying GPT and being wow, like holy shit, this is next level. And you can use these emotions for visualizations and know where you want to go in life. But I also feel that in the game of wealth, I'm reading Banksman's book by Michael Lewis right now,
Mm.
and Sam is incredibly rational. I mean, didn't end up well with him, but he had a very, very impressive track record before this whole thing broke apart. And his ability to not have emotions, I guess, and to make bets out of facts has gotten him very rich. And I feel it's the same way for Warren Buffett, for example, and Charlie Mungers, that are two Jedis of the mind. What do you think about that?
We can always point to a handful of exceptions, but there are, those guys are the 0.0001%, and 99.999% of people who are very successful don't operate that way. And I think a lot of what we believe about these people is completely made up. Like, you and I do not know Warren. We do not know Elon. We have an image. We're given a mask or a representation, as Herman Melville might say, or Carl Jung. The whole point is you are what people think that you are based on what you project out into the world. And based on what I see, I think people like Elon are very emotional, just in a different way. And Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, we can say all day long those guys are rational, data-driven people, but they also say, I would never invest in XYZ because I don't like it.
And
you
they
know?
drink Coca-Cola and eat McDonald's.
Yeah. And even that, who knows if that's true?
I'm pretty sure that is well documented in multiple, yeah, like through multiple people. But and yeah, I mean, just watch the investor summit of Berkshire Hathaway. They're always drinking that shit and
Mm-hmm.
eating like biscuits and and
Yeah.
patties. And I think the right framework that these folks use, and yeah, it's like think. And I'd love to make like more empirical studies. It's on my eventual to-do list and roadmap, but it's motivate yourself through emotions. And when it comes to making decisions, especially in the money making field, it's like almost remove all emotions and be really cold and rational. But let's skip to that next one here, which is equally as interesting. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, debriefed, or numbered. My life is my own.
That's right. Yeah, that's a quote from The Prisoner, an old TV show from 1968. Patrick McGowan, who is the writer, well, one of the main writers of that show, he says that he's the lead actor, and that to me is an incredibly motivational statement that declares your independence as a human being. No one, as Viktor Frankl says in Man's Search for Meaning, no one can force you how to feel or how to think. Despite your circumstances, you can still find meaning and joy and ways of meaning in the world. So I think I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered is basically a statement about society. I'm not going to let society push me around. They can't tell me, hey, you can't do YouTube and guitar and be a writer and be a software developer and a father and a homeowner and a constructor guy. I built 60% of the studio that I'm in my backyard. Like, no one's going to tell me that I can't do all of these things. I don't really care what society expects of me. I'm just going to go do it. I don't need to be a millionaire. I just want to fulfill the dreams, in my own head that feel good to me.
So what's your opinion on the current educational system?
My kids do really well in school, and I don't have to tell them to. They are just self-motivated people. But I think school makes you good at school, and life is not like school. School is ultimately a good thing, and I think we need to do more educating and, less like, I agree with ripping on school for certain reasons, but I think if we all value school and we talk it up as an important thing, we'll make a bigger investment in our own education and growth. So my son, he's not that interested in going to a college, but he's also going to be valedictorian at his high school. 900 kids, he's going to be number one. So it's like, on the one hand, I'm raising a valedictorian, and on the other hand, I need him to be wise. So I don't want him to just be great at school. So I have to teach him what life is really like, despite him being really good at school, and knowing that college can be a pivotal game changer for the right personality.
How did you raise him? Did you raise him to question a bunch of things, to improve his questions, to be curious?
Yeah, he watched The Prisoner, where that quote came from. He's read, they read a lot and they watch interesting things, and we expose them to, we've traveled around the world with our kids. My kids have been to more countries than I visited till I was 35 years old. They've been to Europe and Mexico and all over the United States. And so I think just exposure to real life. And when we meet people, we're even related to people who have so much trouble in their lives. We're able to talk about, why is there so much trouble? What makes these people feel uncomfortable with who they are and where they are? Because again, if Viktor Frankl can find happiness while living and working and suffering in a concentration camp, why can't someone who's working hourly at a retail store, in a first world air conditioned home, what's going on there? So we do talk about that kind of stuff, and being a producer versus just a consumer in the world.
Very deep. Two last quotes here. You are an unrepeatable instance of God's unfailing love.
Yeah, that is from Father Larry Hennessy, who taught at Mundelein Seminary. I'm a Catholic, very strong believer that there is a creator. The reason we are so motivated to create is we're created in his image, whatever that means. And so we have it in our DNA to create. And I think if we look around at the universe, or just even Earth, if I go out to the desert where, in here in Arizona, it can be 50 degrees Celsius in the summer, and you think nothing can live out there. And yet in the most harsh conditions of the earth, there is life. And so I think that is God's doing. Like, God wants things to live and thrive and create. I'm not a prosperity gospel type person. Just pray for God to give you money, and if you're holy, you'll get money. I'm more of a believer that you were created once. Your DNA is literally biologically, universally unique. It will never exist ever again. And if you don't take advantage of that, then you are suffering from what Jesus calls, or told in the story, the parable of the talent. The guy who buries the money in the sand is a wicked and lazy servant. So don't be wicked and lazy. Take the money that you've been given in the form of your DNA and your healthy body, and do the most you can with it in the world while you're here, because you're just a vapor that'll be gone tomorrow.
And giving back, think like that's the highest form of creativity, is when you have so much that you can give to others, and
That's right.
questioned, that abundance, because like you said, air conditioning, houses, the ability of me to speak to you right now, Wi-Fi,
Right.
that knowledge of mine, it's a gift.
Yeah.
Last quote, and yeah, last comment. Me, I don't necessarily believe in a Christian or Catholic or
Hmm.
Muslim or Jewish God, but I believe in a higher form of power, and that brings me that very much needed humbleness, because I'm not a
Hmm.
humble person. And yeah, I just know that there's something stronger than me, or in some facet at least. So um last quote here by one of my favorite author and VC, Naval Ravikant: you are responsible for everything you think, everything you feel, everything that happens to you.
Yeah, that's a very difficult lesson to learn. I think, well, there's a guy that Naval uses for a coach named Kapil Gupta, who's a really interesting mental performance coach. And someone asked him in an interview, Kapil, what do you tell people who feel like God has let them down and their prayers don't get answered? And Kapil said, oh, I think every single prayer they've ever asked has been answered. You get exactly what you want in life. And the Bible is a little bit, it kind of has some similar language. Like Jesus says, what kind of parent would give his child a snake or a scorpion or a stone when he asks for, food or water? Like, God does provide. And if you look at life everywhere, plants are growing, there is water, there is the air, there is healthy soil. It's just a matter of, are you trying to be a cactus in the Arctic, because that's not going to work. So I think that that speaks to your DNA, and God created you to do something, and we have a purpose and a mission and capabilities that are just intrinsic in who we are, and that's what makes you and me unique from each other and from the rest of the world. So live up to what you've been given.
Beautiful. Where can people find out more about you, Anthony?
I usually encourage people not to look me up and not to reach out to me. So they can just search my name. I'm very easy to find, but honestly, unless you're actually serious about talking about this stuff and serious about living a full life, I don't mean to sound presumptuous, just I have so many people reaching out to me on a regular basis. I feel overwhelmed, and then I can't keep up with them, and then I feel like I've failed them. So save yourself the experience unless you feel super compelled to need to speak to me. Like with you, I tried telling you, why are you talking to me? And then you were like, you answered my email 2 or 3 times. I was like, okay, this guy actually wants to talk. Fine, we'll
Yeah,
talk.
yeah. Persistence, especially
Yeah.
when it comes to getting quality people on this pod. So yeah, Anthony Garone, that would be on LinkedIn. Can find Anthony. If you reach out with a purpose and show that you can be of value here. I'm Charles Cormier, your host. That was another CEO Wisdom Podcast.com.